Good morning, and welcome to the this presentation on CBM and Bill Presentation. We just have a handful of slides. We'll do a quick demo of the system, pointing out some key features. But I really hope this is a panel discussion, questions you have on our billing processes, questions you have on the system, any of those kind of things. We're here to help discuss it. I'm Michelle Clayton. I'm with ITS Enterprise Applications, and my team supports CBM and Bill Presentation. With me is the Service Center of Operations from Finance and Service Center of Excellence from Finance and Operations, Lisa Hireman, Tony Horton, Beatrice Maganda. Did I get it right? Yeah, sorry. And then Susan Brown will hopefully join us shortly. So again, welcome. We're just going to do, as I said, kind of a brief overview, helpful hints, and open discussion. So I don't know how many of you are new to it, but CBM is a customer billing management. It's a tool that allows us to do interdepartmental billing for multiple areas across campus. Three key things. Has favorites. So favorites is open to everybody on campus. So if you request services from facilities or ITS or like the telecom print stop, it takes you to favorites to put in your chart stream. Departmental defaults. So someone in your area should be able to update your defaults. You can have a master default or one per journal source. And then modify charges. So there's several areas on campus that just cannot accommodate the full chart stream. So for those, that's where we just have the department, and then you can go to modify chart. It uses the department default, and then you can go to modify charges and put your own chart stream on it. And then bill presentation. After the journal is created, so around the 22nd of the month, we create the journals. After it's created, it's in accounting services for approvals and posting. Once it's posted, every transaction should be in bill presentation for you to see what happened during that month. Our billing areas that actually are department number only and are in CBM. So we have Carolina Inn, the Computer Repair Center, dining, various e-commerce, enterprise, rental car, EHS, FBA, and this HFP are med school, and then of course Friday Center, Remedy and Rizzo stores. And then we have some that are just in bill presentation. So these are areas where we can collect the full chart stream, and we use that to create the journal, and then you can see the details in bill presentation. So access. Your MOU leads or their designees, they have access to set designees for your departments, grant your access to CBM. For bill presentation, it is based on your Connect Carolina Finance access. If you have at least inquiry access in finance, it uses the business unit and chart field security to determine your security within bill presentation. Training. There is CBTs out there. If you go to CC Info and the training site, go to the computer-based training under making payments. We have CBM and bill presentation CBTs. As well as here at the bottom, I'm showing every page within CBM has a help. And it should be unique to that page to tell you how to use that page. So some billing areas send transactions every day, once a week, but transactions, as long as they're in the system in CBM by the 14th of the month, you have it through the 21st of the month to review those charges and modify them. And then on the 22nd of the month is when we create. There's a few exceptions to this, but for the most part, all of our journals are created on the 22nd of the month. And then once they're posted, they are available in bill presentation. Just a quick, I'm actually going to go into the system, but I wanted to do just a quick point out because our test system doesn't necessarily have this. You'll notice under that status column, the third column, it kind of tells you the status of those transactions. So we have modified, reviewed, and not reviewed. If you just click on a transaction and you don't need to change the chart string, it is reviewed. You can click on that and flip it back to not reviewed. And then modified means you actually did change the chart string. Let me log in. And I don't know if y'all, if it was told, we are recording the sessions, and these will be on CC Info in another week or so.
Can I ask by a show of hands who all uses CBM? Ooh.
Okay, I don't know my password evidently.
Got your phone for your duo.
Let me try this other one. Well, maybe I'm not going to be doing a demo. Yeah. So just quickly, this is the entry screen, and this is the screen if you're requesting services from facilities or telecom. We do have a message center, so if anything is changing, so for example, at the holidays, around the Christmas breaks, or in June, we may have to change the dates of when we're creating the journal and our deadlines. We'll be putting that here, but it also has a link to Bill Presentation. On modified charges, you can do a department number, or if you have a range of departments, you can click your range. But this is where, like, if I click on this row, I can come down here and modify my chart string, but notice it went to reviewed. If I didn't mean to review that one and want to come back and look at it later, you can just click back on that again. It'll go to not reviewed. I click on it. Export data, so I don't make sure you all are aware. There is an export option, so you can export current month. That is everything that is going to be in a journal the month you're here. Export also, for example, if we start, your FedEx charge comes in on the 17th of the month, it's not going to bill October 22nd. It's going to bill November 22nd. So you have to do export all if you want to see future month charges, or you can just do the current month. And again, there's help on every page. And then department defaults. Campus is the main one. You have to have a campus. If you don't have anything for any of these other billing areas, it is the campus default that the charge uses. Help documents, and then there is this view source descriptions. So there is something where you can see, you know, so what is AEB? You can come over here and see what that is. Here, let's go to Bill Presentation. You can, if you leave this blank and don't pull anything over, it's going to pull for every billing area for the month. You can do as far back as you want. There is a limit on what it will return, so just be aware of that. For department ID, you can put in. You could do a wild card. So if you do a wild card, just do like 22 star. That will bring everything back. But I'm just going to do a specific department. You can do multiple departments. And then save and run report. I don't, for older, if you have older work orders and facilities, this is not a PID or an onion, but newer charges or should be an onion here. If you click on, if there's a PID or onion in this, it does pop up, give you the information on who actually requested the service. For these, there is, if image now is in that box, that means we actually have an invoice. You can click on that and see the actual invoice.
How long are the invoices available?
Forever.
They are.
Yeah. These descriptions do expand, and of course you can export to Excel if you want to review. I think, is there anything else key on this page? I know the other thing I wanted to show, so whatever chart string you provide, and I'm sorry, in my test system I don't have a good example of this, but if you provide a chart string that doesn't have budget error or has a budget error or for whatever reason becomes invalid, and we use your default chart string, this will populate as yes, and then if you click on that box, it will actually tell you the chart string we originally attempted to use and the error message we received back from Connect Carolina of why that failed. When you do the export to Excel, it doesn't say yes, it just gives you that message, the original chart string and the message. So having said that, go back to PowerPoint. So now we'd like your feedback. Yes, ma'am.
I just had a question about kind of the layout of CBM. Is there a way to customize it so it's more user-friendly? For example, you know, there's columns that are useless and I'm constantly scrolling to the right to find whatever. And also if I'm trying to sort them, because I have lots of charges and I go, okay, let me sort this up all my non-reviewed or say at the top, but as soon as we go and review one, it just jumbles them. Is there a way to like adjust it or set user preferences?
So we'll look at that. I can't personally answer that right now. I'll talk to my developers, but we definitely should be able to relook at the organization of the columns, but also talk about, can you do it by user preference in each person? And just, I didn't show that. Let me try to go back real quick. In CBM, there's this multi-line edit and show filter. I don't have a lot showing here, but you could come in here and filter this to say, show me not, so if you type not reviewed, it would filter just down to those that are not reviewed. Or same if you just wanted to see a specific billing area.
Which is great, and thank you for showing that. If you did that, though, and you reviewed one of those, would it retain that? Or would you have to do
Or would
it?
it disappear from the screen?
Correct.
Because it says it just data changes it no longer.
Okay.
We use that.
Yeah. Thank you for showing that.
And then there is the multi-line edit. I forgot to show that as well. The multi-line edit, you have to be within the same journal source. So if you're going to do that, you may want to filter, like this is student store charges, filter on USS. And then you can highlight, and it works just like your file. So you could start with this one. I'm not clicking, and then hold your shift key and go to the last one. I hope I did that. I can't see what I'm doing. And then when you change the chart string, it changes all three at once.
You have to highlight.
You have to highlight. Yes.
I do all that.
Okay.
And it also, I got still, you know, speak the card, like review the bills. So there's still time out, and give you that warning, I'll go, okay, still time out. You come out, I'm just saying,
Yeah, I have heard, because we heard there was a timeout issue, and then the person who reported it told us it was better. So we need to go back and look at it. Okay. But it's primarily like when you're going off and look at, so probably like when you go off and look at an invoice, you're kind of not in the system clicking. So I've got to figure out the clicking, and we need to look at just even our timeout settings. Of do we need to extend it a little bit?
Is it ever going to be connected to Connect Carolina, or is it just an invalid chart field if we do the budget check at the time? And also you don't have the issues with invalid chart fields?
So we go back and forth on that. So we've talked about it. The issue with the budget checks is it takes 10 to 15 seconds to perform those. We could potentially even give you the option to do that. The other thing we found with budget check, if you did your entry, let's say on October 1st, you may have budget. By October 22nd, you may not. But we can definitely look at least having it out there optionally for you to do a budget check.
So how, when they get kicked out for budget, they get changed? Sometimes like Carolina and the user will contact us and say, this one didn't get paid, I need you to do it. We thought they would automatically change to our default.
Okay, thank you for bringing that up. So there's Carolina Inn, Friday Center, Rizzo. That may be the three main ones. You cannot use state and FNA funds. So if your default is state and FNA funds, we're still going to fail. So if there's something, if you think if you have a trust fund and you think you're still failing, we need to look at that.
Because our trust is supposed to be a trust that shouldn't, that's always wrong. That's not supposed to stop.
Right, that's not supposed to stop. So we do.
What area are you from? Steinberg.
For the Carolina Inn room stays, the account just says select, so that's always going to fail unless somebody goes in and chooses an appropriate account and type of room stay.
Yes, okay.
We've had more issues, I think, with the Rizzo Center saying that it didn't pay, and then they're calculating it another month, and that's why I was getting confused. Since I thought the reason for the default trust account was so that if our chart field didn't go through, it would have paid, and that is not how it ended up.
So the one difference with Rizzo, so Rizzo, we're actually creating vouchers instead of journals, and we don't have the processes to check that. So if it's just Rizzo, you're right, we're not going back to the default for those. Yes.
The bill presentation. How close after, I guess, the close of the customer billing login are you able to go in and pull up the invoices and create the receipts and things like that for the bill presentation? Because I haven't been able, I think I was in the span of time that I couldn't do that.
Right, so there is the span of time between the 22nd and accounting services actually reviewing the journal and approving it. So until accounting services actually does that approval, and we hold it to where you can't see it during that time in case there's something in there that accounting services rejects. So for example, if we have an issue where we send an account that is not valid for that service, accounting services rejects our journal and we have to reprocess it. So that's the primary reason we don't send it to bill presentation. So it is dependent on the timing of when accounting services can go in and do the approvals.
Does that vary during the month?
It varies. For the most part, there was a span of time when it was pretty like within 2 days. However, the primary person that does those was out of town a month, so it was a little bit later. So if somebody's sick or out of the office, it can take a lot longer. But for the most part, it's usually 2 to 3 days.
Do you have a recommendation? I do these on the 20th. Is that safe? I'm not going to miss.
No, that should be safe.
Okay.
The only time you should really double check, and we tried to put it in the finance newsletter. I hope you get the finance newsletters. If we're changing it, it should be in the newsletter. But for example, in December, there is a chance that we'll need to do it earlier.
Okay.
And that's true. It's definitely true in June. So when they're closing out the fiscal year, we usually have to have the journals complete and approved by the 20th of the month. So December and June are the key months you need to really just double check we're doing it earlier.
Communication.
Yeah.
instances where we've had transactions that populate the customer billing budget, and they're not even in our department. And we just changed the department number because we don't know why it's being directed to my department. You know, pre-filling or something we got to deal with.
Yeah, so it depends on the service. So, trying to think of examples. Are yours mostly the chemistry storeroom that are doing that, or is it across the board?
You mean various vendors?
Yeah.
Various vendors, yeah.
So it's dependent on the department number that was provided. That's as much as I know.
Did you give me an idea of where to look to see what the original transaction?
Yeah.
Yeah. If
So
it was, entry error by someone.
Yeah. I know we had some in the chemistry storeroom that were doing that. But if you'll let me know, just let me know if there's a primary billing area where it's happening. So for example, with FedEx, your FedEx account itself is tied to a department number. So if somebody's mistyped that, it really just depends on the billing area on how that can happen.
Right. FedEx is one of them. It's very difficult for us to determine what chart fill string we use for the charges because we don't recognize the fee. We can only look back through, I guess, what the FedEx websites and then try to find who sent it or where it was sent to, and then sometimes we can't figure that out.
Because we try to have for the FedEx charges in the descriptions, the shipper and where it was shipped to. But
if the third party bills you,
right,
then you don't, and some people, we've had instances where they've sent them on campus. This building sent it to this building. You're like, why do we have a charge for that?
Yeah.
Or send it to campus.
Yeah. And along those lines, any of the description, so we have 4 description fields in CBM and Bill Presentation. They're 60 characters each. If you have ideas, if the descriptions aren't working for you, if it's not the information you want, not helpful to help you find the charges and recognize them, let us know that, and we can sit down and start looking at these descriptions. Are we giving, this was the billing area's best guess at the information you needed. Depending on whether it was a service they use or not, they may not really know what's helpful to you. But again, any of those, just send us a remedy ticket.
We tried to school our people into putting the information in the reference field, like the project ID,
Right.
so that when it populates into the customer billing module, we have a little bit more information than we start with. We spend a lot of time doing
it. Other feedback.
Also, about the PIN. Okay, some of the vendors do not supply a PIN.
Some do not.
You don't recognize a person's name.
Right.
So who they're associated with or affiliated with. I mean, our faculty just give out FedEx.
So like with FedEx, it is truly the information that you're putting on that thing when you're shipping, or who you're the from and to. I mean, that's really all the information we get back from FedEx.
Mm-hmm.
Who decides from students who are allowed to purchase with the company number and whatnot? We've had people ordering when they won the championship T-shirts and cups and mugs and stuff, and that's stuff that should not be allowed to be purchased by partners.
Yeah, so if you're experiencing something like that, I can give you my email address. You probably should email me. As everybody may know, some may not, but everybody should by now that the store was outsourced to Barnes & Noble. Mm-hmm. And so they work very closely with about 3 or 4 project managers that are still employed with the university in order to make sure they adhere to these kind of policies and procedures. And so,
like everything
Yeah.
else was up for grabs, and I think it needs to be a bit more restricted.
It should be. And so unless we're aware of, you know, some of their cashiers and managers allowing those type of purchases to go through because they're aware of the policy procedures, but they have turnover like
Right.
everybody else. So if you do experience things like that, Tony Horton, but you can see me from my email address. I'll be more than happy to make sure we reinforce it. But I'll talk to the manager at the store at Arms and Noble and make sure she.
Yeah. Sometimes
She
it
has
takes a bit of
several
time getting
managers.
The PI to pay me back for it, because we can't pay for it anywhere, so
Sure.
I'm trying to collect the money.
Sure.
And she
She
should
has-
have known better.
Well, they should, but like
Yeah.
anywhere else, if you can go and get it.
Yeah.
To process, you'll hopefully let it process and let the other people deal with it later.
Yeah.
So good. I'm glad you told me that.
Yes.
In the event of there not being an invoice in CBM, is there another way to access that before it goes? Or your company?
So the invoices, essentially the invoices we have access to are, so like, for example, FedEx, we do not get individual invoice. The invoice we receive from FedEx is every department's FedEx charges for the month. So we don't have access to individual invoices by account. Is there a particular area that we should look at trying to determine if we have an
I can't
invoice?
think of one off the top of my head, but for example, if I have to add a cost code to something, I can't miss it.
course. Right.
I
Where to cost
usually
it.
contact the contact
Right.
that's listed in the bill presentation for the specific billing department, because they want to get a lot of information, and they're pretty good about sending.
I just want to make another thing too. We've had cases where we've received invoices from FedEx, but it's FedEx freight. We're able to pay those by vouchers. But the other shipping through FedEx, they denied it, saying that you have to go to the university. So there's two different scenarios for FedEx. Find you have the invoices as freight in FedEx freight. They will allow you to pay that.
Other questions, feedback, other helpful hints that we could make things easier?
You can go over the transactions with the balance streams. And then you would export data and pay output. What is that feature?
Oh, that is, and I played with this last night because I can't remember. I think that shows you if we know that if you have charges in there that we know were invalid, it just filters the list down
Okay.
to those.
Okay. And also, we cost code, and we have program codes, we're required to have program codes on all our truck bill streams. Now, is there a way to, have a drop down list where you can start typing that in the auto fields? I mean, I have to type the complete, cost code in there, and sometimes my memory's not as good as it could be.
Right.
Cost code fields, is there a way that somehow that can be?
Yeah, we need to look at that and do it more like some of the other applications for all of the chart fields to let you kind of start typing and
Right.
pre-filter.
That would be very, very
If you want that. The other thing to make you all aware of, P-card. So with the new P-card system, those transactions, just so you know, there is a default in P-card for the card that is used as the initial chart string, and then people will go in to the Works P-card system and kind of like CBM put a different chart string on it if you want to, but it is going to use Bill Presentation and CBM to create the journals themselves. So if any of your P-card transactions have invalid combinations or budget errors, it will use the default that is set up in CBM, the departmental default that is set up in CBM, and that begins this month. Those journals should be created next week. And the Works P-card system cannot do combo edit. So we could easily have more combination edit errors than I hope what you're experiencing for CBM.
Does everybody currently go in and look at your activity so that you can change the status to review. That's really important.
And if you do change it, you have to hit validate, right? Or it won't. You do change the chart.
Yeah, there's a validate and a save as.
Oh, you do, okay. Okay, save allocation and validate. You have to do both.
Right.
Okay.
And if you do, well, if you just do the save, it does validate it, and it should come back and give you an error message.
Okay.
And just to verify that, let me just put.
Since the fee card is new.
Yes. So just clicking save did just come back and give the error message.
Since the fee card is a new source, CBM should be going in to add their info.
Yeah. So we'll be configuring this evening the new P card journal source within CBM. So beginning tomorrow, let me go back to the departmental default page.
And I'll just throw this out as a tidbit real quick. As a billing unit, sometimes customers think, well, can't you go change that for me? Can you fix that for me? Only the department can change the default. So we are not, if you're a billing entity, you cannot go in here. So that's another reason just to maybe check your status of your transactions. And you do or should have the capability of updating your defaults.
But tomorrow you should see a billing area option for P card. It'll be PCD. So if you want a default other than what's on the campus, you should be able to come here and put in a new default for the P card.
So how is that? So P card is being reconciled with something and then coming into
Yes. Yeah, so it'll have, so the Works P card system will have the full chart stream. So there is a process. We use CBM to create all of our journals. So it kind of funnels through CBM, it just never goes to modify charges. So it goes through CBM, creates the journal. If there's any combo edit or budget errors, it comes back and grabs your default chart stream so that we can still process the journal. As soon as accounting services approves and posts it, you should be able to see those charges within bill presentation. Now, I will say those in the P card, I hope you go to the P card session. I don't want to cover too much about P card, but there are receipts, attach your receipts within the P card system. We will not have those receipts in bill presentation. You will have to go over to the Works P card system for that.
So the default for the P card is kind of gone then.
No, so, well, it's two different ones. So you have a default at the card level, and that's when the charge first comes in. So when Bank of America first receives that charge, it puts that default from the card on. So if you have a card that always uses the exact same chart stream, you would never have to go in there and actually change. You would just have to load your receipt. And then what happens though, because you can change that chart stream, and there's no way within the Works P card system to validate that your combination is valid or that it has budget. It could, if whatever is entered in the P card system is invalid, come back and get your default. It'll be a departmental default versus a card default.
One of the reasons we have the default for each card is because that PI is using it. Now you're taking, we're going to have 12 P cards, all default to us, and we aren't going to know whose card it was that
So
was charged.
we will have that. So in bill presentation, we're going to have the actual work. There's in Works, there's a transaction number. And so I'll have the transaction number, the last name of the card holder, and the vendor where they made the purchase. It will also have who reconciled that charge and approved that charge within the Works system. And again, once you start seeing those charges, and it has a reference, there is a reference field and comments, we'll be having that as well in bill presentation. Once you start seeing the charges, I hope not.
I keep trying to tell the department that this is going to lessen our flow, and I keep saying, no, it's not. You're getting more steps, and then we're only going to have it hit once a month, where the voucher hits as soon as it's through every day.
So there is a goal as the we get used to the new Works and P card system, that as you're approving the charges, we'll start creating the journals as you approve them. But we're just not there yet.
Yeah, instead of creating one batch per month, you can process it quicker or something.
Yeah. So our goal will be to do that over time.
In the meantime, I mean, that's a goal for what? Months and years down the road.
I hope it's, I'm hoping it's a goal for the spring.
Because we have probably 30 people.
Yeah.
We got a lot of people. You know, a lot of transactions.
Other questions? Feedback?
I'm confused on the
Okay.
P card. Is it gonna show up on CBM and Bill?
No, just Bill Presentation.
So let me, I'm sorry, no presentation, they'll all be in one spot, or just the one that it's not like a vendor like FedEx, or that's what I keep saying.
No,
you know, like
It will all be,
telephone people.
right. You would be able, so here,
Yeah.
we'll have an option for P card, but it will be all of them.
When I print a copy of the facility services invoices that are processed, it's got the same like title of a project that doesn't even match what the chart field frame is. Has somebody looked at that? That's just yeah. It doesn't even exist anymore. Every time I bring one up, like chemistry, it says ladder frame such and such. I know that thing in 3 years ago. For every chart field frame.
So with if you have a work order at facilities that's 3 years old, it still has the old,
They're only updates when you get a new report. You're still using an existing one.
Yeah.
Just keeping that efficient.
Yeah. So if you'll send me an example of that, we can work on that.
That work order obviously isn't closed, or it would not still be billed. So once that work order closes out, and the project manager should have, if you're finished with the project, it should have been closed. But a lot of them may or may not have been closed. But we can
It's still
close them
receiving
and,
It is still receiving charges.
right.
No.
But
It's a different chart field string, multiple chart field strings that references the title of this project.
multiple chart fill strings to one work order,
Yeah.
if you really,
Yeah.
just
So-
give me an invoice number and I can dig into it and find out what's going on. Susan Brown.
Yeah, I can provide you examples.
That'd be perfect.
Copies of what I'm saying.
Thank you.
I mean, it's F&A and state and project, and just do keep saying that.
Michelle,
Mhm.
do you want to say something about future plans to audit the system access, the CBM?
Yeah, so we have left, thank you. CBM, since it's been kind of self-maintained by the departments, we haven't been doing, I don't know if you are aware, that your MOUs, I'll get a report every 6 months of your Connect Carolina Finance access that says, do you still need that access? Make sure we didn't miss. So with Connect Carolina, when you actually terminate from the university, your access should automatically be removed. But this, like moving in between departments, we don't necessarily catch that. So the point of those audits is to help catch, hey, Michelle is no longer in ITS, she now works in finance, we need to remove her access. So we have not been doing that for CBM. So we do have a goal in the next 6-month one to send that out to all the MOUs as part of the finance audit, to send that out just to ensure, because I think it's all of us get busy and don't go in and clean up as people transition.
So
feedback.
Michelle,
Uh-huh.
who should we turn that information into? You or
What information set?
when someone terminates the
Oh, so
transfer to another area?
your access request coordinator or your MOU for your department. Other questions? Other how-to? You're a new user and not sure?
I do want to say this is a lot better than
Thank you. We are trying to, and your feedback is helpful. The first year I know was rough. Then we did a concentrated effort trying to make it better for campus, and then we kind of went back and tried to make it better for the billing areas. But we're kind of back in that transition time. It's time to look at what does campus need again. So I'm hoping, after the holidays, first of the year, we're going to really start relooking at. So I know the timeouts, the user preferences, we'll look at the pre-filtering, the chart strings. So any feedback you have, please, you can either drop us a remedy ticket, call 962-HELP, or and then in CBM at the bottom, there is there's a CBM help question, little link at the bottom that sends my team an email, so feel free to do that as well. Let me see right here. Sorry.
I'm hung up on the P card thing.
Sorry.
Oh,
But here, submit a suggestion or a question.
it's
Says our
kind
team.
of, all the P card transactions for a certain department will come into Bill Press. Is that correct?
Yes.
And then, is that so that we can download it and print it out?
Yeah, so that's how you have your report. So like in the former P card system, you could go in that system and see your transactions for the prior month. You can do that within the works, but we're having it in Bill Presentation so you can see the actual chart string. If you can get that information out of in InfoPort, it should also have the vendor and the transaction number. So if it's easier for you to actually just go to Works and run your reports, that's great too. It's just trying to give you an option to see the data. Yes.
When you click on the row and go on, you don't have then like to change your chart string, because then you have to like make sure
You can't see the row again.
all the reference description fields. If you miss something, back up with it. It's just a small process.
Right. Right. Okay. That's good feedback. Thank you.
And Michelle, am I correct in that the one benefit of running through Bill Presentation for the P cards is the journal information? That
Yeah, we'll have the journal ID.
when you're reconciling with the university financial system.
Yes.
The works, that little user interface, that's not managed by
No, it's a Bank of America application. But if you have feedback for that,
I do, just. So when you go to enter your chart field, you type in your number and tab over and try to go through, and then you look back, you save your changes. You have to do the whole right click, accept. It's just not the end of the world. I just mentioned.
no, that's good feedback. And then we have routine calls back with the Bank of America. So they have a feedback mechanism just like we do. So we'll make sure we give them that feedback.
I mean, it's just it's new, so
Right.
you know, you're used to it as well.
Yes. Oh, sorry, I thought you had something.
Yeah, no.
No, I thought you raised your hand a while ago. Any final questions? I really appreciate you attending the conference, attending the session. Your feedback is helpful. And again, remedy tickets, send us an email. We're listening. We may not be fast at responding, but we are listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair.